So welcome, welcome, welcome. This is our first Women on the Rise show for 2024. And
Awesome.
I am so excited to be here. We talk on the show with inspiring, empowered women who are dreaming new dreams, creating their legacies and building their empires. And so today I have the pleasure of introducing you to Cindy Cyr. I met Cindy when she came in for a branding photo session. And like with so many of my clients, we became friends. And when I was considering the topic for today's show and for the month of February, I really wanted to do something with romance and it just seemed fitting with the month. And there's no one that I have seen who is more intentional about keeping the romance alive than Cindy and her husband, Frank. So Cindy is an entrepreneur. She's an author. She's a speaker. She's a storyteller. She's an empty nester, an unshakable optimist and doer of random acts of kindness, dedicated to helping women create their ultimate next chapter in life, especially now that the kids are gone. So really, your focus is working with empty nesters, right? Yeah.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And so welcome, welcome. And if anybody is on, I see we have two comments here. Let me see if I can see them. Oh, Stevie's with us. Nancy's with us. Hi, Stevie and Nancy. We're so glad that you're here and we're going to have a lot of fun today. So Cindy's going to talk with us today about 5 actions to rekindle romance daily and fuel your own everlasting love story. But first, Cindy, I would like for you to share with us a little bit about you have had quite a journey to get to the place that you're at now. You've gone through a lot of things. You've gone through divorce and remarriage and getting, an awesome bonus kids in your family. So can you just tell us a little bit about your backstory?
So I was married for almost 10 years to my first husband, and had a quite devastating, like he asked for a divorce on Christmas Eve. So it was it was not good timing. And that was a really devastating thing. And I dated, and that sucked. I mean, come on, like there's just, and I kind of had just given up on the whole thing. And then this friend of mine talked me into going to one of those like kind of like a speed dating thing, but they called it pre-dating. And it was you had to fit in a certain, they tried to match people a little bit before you got into the group. And it was a small group. It wasn't, there wasn't like 40 people or anything like that. So they had like 8 women and 8 men. And I was so against going to this thing, Kim, like so against it. And I remember telling my friend, who was a man. Okay. So he had been engaged, and he was like, oh, it's so hard for me to meet people. Just go to this thing with me. And so he's like, I'll pay for you to go. And I mean, he just was like trying to convince me to go to this thing. And I said, I don't want to go to this, this is going to be lame. And, I just didn't want to do it. And so I said, finally, I was like, okay, look, here's the deal. I will go on this one condition. When it's lame, which I know it's going to be, when it's our turn to talk, we're going to make a big scene. Okay. You're going to like slam me down on the table, give me a big kiss, and we're going to walk out like we made this connection, right? We're going to make it. And he's like, oh my God. Okay, whatever. Fine. That's what we'll do. So it gets me to go. And the minute I walked in, I see this guy sitting over on the couch, and he's like reading a paper or something. I just, and I don't normally have this kind of visceral type of whatever, where I just was like, wow, he is stunning. Like, I don't know. I just felt this connection to him immediately. And so I actually met him before we started, and went over, and we had name tags on. And so mine, said I'm Cindy or whatever. His name is Frank. So he had one that said, I'm Frank. And so I took his name tag off. This is very bold for me too. So I took his name tag off, and I took my name tag off, and I switched places, and I said, let me be frank with you. And so that immediately got his attention. And we hit it off during the thing, and we stayed after. We almost didn't connect because he had asked me in the middle. He was like, do you want to have a drink with me afterwards? And I said, sure. Well, afterwards, he saw me talking to this other guy, which was my friend that I came with, right? And so he immediately was like, oh, she's not even interested in me. Like, what is this? Like, I don't want to get played. And so he actually left, but he came back, and thank God. And then, sort of the rest is history, but, we just had this great romance, and it's never stopped. And we knew pretty fast, that, that we wanted to be together. We took a couple years before we got married, which I think we'd both been married before. And I think that's good that you have enough space. I think sometimes, you don't really get to know a person fully because we always put our best foot forward. So
Yes.
I think it's important to have that time. And then we also had his kids involved, which we wanted to make sure they were okay before, going into that, because they had been through a divorce and all that. I mean, he took a while before he introduced me to his kids, and then he, felt like he was kind of living this double life. And he said, I know I want to be with this woman. So he introduced me to them, and I hit it off with them immediately. We had a magical, magical day. And I celebrate um, an anniversary with them also.
Oh, I
In
love
fact,
that.
this year is our 20th that I met the kids. So we're doing a family trip to celebrate our 20th meet anniversary in the fall. And we're going to go to Scotland and Ireland together. And so I'm excited about that. So,
Oh, I
yeah.
love that. You are just so intentional about creating these milestones and celebration moments in your life. And I
Yeah.
just so admire that. Um, yeah, that's amazing. And so I wanted to touch before we get into your topic about relationships, because, we just had Valentine's Day, and there's a lot of
Hmm.
ladies, maybe even in our group, who aren't currently in relationships, or they've come out of
Hmm.
bad ones. They're kind of like you
Hmm.
were before. And
Right.
and I know that the most important relationship we can really ever have is the one that we have with ourselves. And if we don't learn to
Hmm.
love ourselves, it's going to be hard for us to really be in a good relationship with somebody else. So, and I
Hmm.
know
100%.
that
Hmm.
in the way that you celebrate things, that you
Hmm.
actually created a special day that's just for you. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So when my previous marriage, we separated like just shy of our 10 years. So it was like 9.5 years. And so when it was going to be our 10th anniversary, which is ironically is today. Um,
Oh,
so the 15th, we had gotten married on the 15th. I decided, instead of that being a big bummer, that I was going to turn it into celebrating Cindy Day. And so I still celebrate it. It looks different every year. But the first year that I did it, I invited a bunch of girlfriends, and my favorite color is purple. So I told everybody to wear purple. And then I bought them little gift bags, and everything in the bag was purple. So we had all purple, and we had sparklers, and we all went to lunch. And I remember it was down at the landing in Jacksonville. So we went out to lunch, and we did sparklers afterwards, and everybody got a gift. And I just made it into a fun day. And has become a day that every year I reflect on how far I've come, like what has been great in my life, and how have I overcome challenges, and what milestones have I hit, or bucket list items have I, been able to do. What all do I have in my life that is great and wonderful? And so I still celebrate it. And
I
it's great.
love
My husband
that.
knows about it. He even's like, happy celebrating Cindy Day. And so I just made it into a happy thing instead of it being a bummer. And I think everybody should do that. Everybody should have a day.
Right, whether
you
it
know?
was from a divorce or a traumatic thing, or it's just a day
Right.
just for you. And
Yeah.
what a great way to really build that self-love and have that self-awareness and, just reevaluate who you are and where you want to go
Mhm.
and the beautiful things in your life. I love that. These are the
Yeah. And
reasons
I
you
love that you
inspire
bring up
me.
the self-love because that is so, so true. I don't think I could have the relationship I have with my husband now if I didn't have that
Right,
self-love, if I didn't find that. And I continue to work on it. And it just makes, when I get stronger and the more love I give myself, the more I'm able to give to him. And so if you aren't giving that to yourself first, it's hard to give love back to somebody else if you're not giving it to yourself first,
right, exactly.
you know?
Because if we're always expecting somebody else to fill us up, right? Like
Right.
then,
Right.
and if two people come together and they're both expecting that,
Yeah.
rather than
Yeah, that's
coming
a
already
disaster.
full and being able to give to each other, that's so much
Right.
healthier. So
Yeah. Yeah.
awesome.
Absolutely. 100%.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us. So we are going to go ahead and move into these 5 actions that you
Okay.
you practice
Hmm.
that keep your relationship strong. So you do something called magic minutes. So tell us what
Hmm.
magic minutes are and how you use them to, reignite romance or keep it going.
Okay. So it's really like 60 seconds a day. It's just a playfulness or romance. So, and this can look like differently for everybody. And I mean, Frank and I probably do more than 60 seconds every day, but if you're starting out, it's even just, you can break it down. You can do 60 seconds at once, or you can break it down throughout the day. And I think and the reason I like to say this, these magic minutes is because I don't want it to be an overwhelming thing.
Mhm.
And um, if you really want to kick it up a notch, though, I'll tell you that in a minute. But so think back to when you were first dating. What are playful things that you did when you were first dating? Um, Maybe you used to pinch your husband's ass, or maybe you would, pull each other off into the corner and give each other a big old kiss or whatever it might be. It's like, what are those little things? And they can be playful in different ways too. Like my husband and I, we make the bed together every day, like, well, I shouldn't say every day we do it together, but a lot of days we do. We will make the bed together, and it's like a part of our ritual. And we're playful with it. Like sometimes we'll do a little pillow fight when we're making the bed. Or so, what are playful things that you can introduce? Maybe it's, you're sitting at the table and you have music on and you're dancing at the table together, um, or you just see your husband standing there at the stove, whatever, and you run up behind him and you give him a big old hug. But it's those kinds of things. Now, if you really want to take on a challenge, if you're really saying, like, I need to really spice things up, and this is going to be one that you should try. And it's every day, like commit to it. You have to talk to your husband about it or whatever, but every day for a week, I want you to go and you have to kiss for 60 seconds, for a full minute. Now, that may not sound like much, but when you start doing it, like a minute is a long time to
It's a
kiss a
long
person.
time when you're concentrating on, yeah,
Yeah,
trying to make sure.
right. But do that every day and just see how that changes things for you. Because that it really does that just a challenge. I'm putting that challenge out to you is to try that
I
and then
love
come
that.
back and report.
Well, ladies, we've been challenged, so I can't wait to see
Yeah.
what comes up in the group after this to see who's going to implement this and tell us how it goes.
I'm
So
going to tell you one more thing too to try. And this is something Frank and I do every day, and we do it on more than 60 seconds, but we pretzel, like in bed or whatever, or even just watching TV, we pretzel every day. That's another great one. Pretzeling is where you're like just kind of all wrapped up in each
oh,
other.
okay.
My legs swung over his and his is over mine, and we're just, kind of grabbing onto each other.
Oh, that's so
But,
sweet.
doing that is, um, I mean, it's just a very, like, you're together. And so if you do that every day, that's going to spice things up for you too.
So, was this your idea that you had to bring to Frank and get his buy-in? Or was this something that he came up with? I know he's very demonstrative, or was it something you just kind of did together and just fell upon it?
It's really something that we've kind of done together. And um, there's different things that have, as we go through some of these other things, it sort of has come up as like, oh, I like this. Let's do more of that. Or so I'll talk more about that a little later, but it really is something that we've kind of come up together, and it's, and it's grown, and there's things that we talk about, and communication is so important in that,
For
and
sure.
keeping a relationship. And so um we found things or tried things, and these are things that, kind of work for us.
That's cool. And how long have
Yeah.
you and Frank been married?
We've been married for almost 18 years, and we've been
Okay.
together for 20.
Right. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. So, yeah. So, what are some other things maybe that you guys do to foster togetherness and just keeping things exciting and fresh?
You have to think of like I said like adventuring locally is a one thing, because kind of seeking adventures in your own backyard. Um, I think a lot of times we think about like traveling somewhere, which is exciting and new and fresh, but there's a lot right in our own backyards that you can do just to keep things fun. Whether, I mean, taking a course, like Frank and I took um, a class last year, we did stained glass. And so we took a stained glass class together. And that was really different, and it was really fun. And then we'd do the class and we go out to lunch. And so it was just a different way to, do things. Or we might just look for something that's we've never explored. This last weekend, we went to Prince's Place, which I'd never even heard of or existed. It's kind of down in Flagler. Um, and it's this, it was just a cool place to go. But we just try to do different things. Like look at your place as like you're a tourist, and and do some things like that. And that can be really fun because you'll discover try things that maybe don't even appeal to you necessarily, but you don't know because you haven't done it. Um, so it's just trying things like that. And then I think the other thing is change up your own environment. And I loved you just had an article about how you did that kind of staycation where
We
you
called it
treated
a get
your
to stay instead of a
yeah,
getaway.
get to stay. Yeah. And I love that. And that's like the perfect example of really taking your own environment and saying, how can I change this up? And just do something, put a bunch of candles out and, in a room, and create an atmosphere and pump up the music, or like Frank and I, so we have this great outdoor space and we eat outside a lot. Um, but we have a dock. And so this summer we're like, let's have a like outdoor picnic. And so I set up a pallet with the blankets and everything and put that out there. And then we had candles and we did a charcuterie and wine. And, set up the tiki torches and, we were out there for sunset, and then as the moon rose and the stars. And it was just so neat. And it was like, even though we eat out here all the time and we love this environment and it's always special, it just added like an extra something. And I think that's just the extra effort of doing something like that. So, what is something you can do in your own environment just to change things up to show like that little extra effort, I guess? And that keeps it fresh, because it's different,
That's so
you
true
know.
because when we go to a different place, we are looking for what's cool in that place to go do. But then we
Mm-hmm.
forget that there's cool things in our own, right in our own backyard, our own
Mm-hmm.
cities. I'm just going to take a second here to see what comments are coming in. So Stevie has a new beginning day. That's her celebrating Cindy Day
Mm-hmm.
version.
Love
And
it.
Nancy loves the idea of kissing for a minute. She's game to try that one.
Awesome.
And she said that they're also taking dance lessons. So I think that that's a great thing for a couple to do for couples to do together. You had told us when you were here, I was talking to you before we went live that
Mhm.
when you came in for your photo shoot, that
Mhm.
you just have, I mean, we were taking notes. My whole team was taking notes because you were planning out and we'll talk about that in a minute, but your
Mhm.
meet anniversary day. And you were
Mhm.
telling us, like, I didn't know that the Comer had those picnics on the ground where you could go buy your hamper and, go out and have a picnic there. And so I still haven't done it because I think it was right around the pandemic and we couldn't do it then. And
Mhm.
so, and then I realized when I would go online to look, they are seasonal. Um,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so I just haven't hit it at the right spot, but that's still on my list to do.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many things, and sometimes you have to just keep looking for them. But like this, tomorrow night, we're gonna go. There's these candlelight things. I think they might be all over the country, but there's candlelight performances. Have you heard of these?
No.
So, yeah. So we're going to one. It's Hans Zimmer
What?
music, and it's candlelit, and it's at the downtown library. And so I mean, it looks like I don't know, hundreds of candles. Looks super romantic. I'm excited. So anyway, we're gonna go do that tomorrow night. But I think just looking for those things is you never know what you're gonna find,
And
you know?
where do you look like when you're looking? Because I know, and again, you are very intentional. And
Mhm.
like I think a
Mhm.
lot of us just, well, whatever happens, happens, or we'll get ready to go, we'll say we're gonna go out to dinner and it's like, well, I can't think of any place. It's just the same old places that we know we like and we'll go to. And
Right.
so how do you find out about these happenings and get connected with new
So
places?
I mean, one of the things you can do really, I mean, Google is such a great tool. But just Google like romantic things to do in whatever your city is.
Great advice.
Or and and then it might spark some ideas, even just that maybe there's nothing that really appeals to you at that time. But you have to keep doing it because there's going to be different things that are come up. But but there might be something on the list that you go, oh yeah. Or even just me talking about it, you might say, oh, candlelight concert, that sounds really cool. I'm gonna Google, is there candlelight concerts in my area? Or how do I have a romantic picnic? If you don't know what are some romantic date ideas? Just Google that to like start thinking about that. And then also pay attention if you are online, like a lot of us are. So if you're scrolling through or whatever and you see some kind of picture or some image, or there's a couple that inspires you, maybe there's something there that's a clue for you to say, like, that looks really cool. For some reason that lit me up. How can I create a similar experience? Or there's something, what is it about that is exciting me? And then kind of go from there. So that's sort of how I do it, is like, well, there's something about this that is great, like
Well,
picnics, I tend to
yes,
see,
we still have to go to a vineyard. After I saw your pictures of you and Frank kissing in a vineyard, I was like, oh yeah, we've got to do that.
yeah, yeah.
So yes, I'm definitely
So,
inspired by you. And I think that that's a good thing too, ladies. If you're doing things that are, sometimes we like don't want to post everything on social media, but just know that when you're sharing parts of your life and the things that you do, other people will see them and be inspired by that. It's not bragging
mhm,
or showing off. You're really just
yeah,
inspiring other women how to live, a little bit more full, fun life. And that's what life is all
exactly.
about, right? To live it.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Yep.
I love that. So that kind of brings another question. So couples are different, and I know that opposites very often attract. And you and
Yes.
Frank seem to have a lot in common, but what do you suggest for couples who might not have a lot of hobbies or interests that they both enjoy doing?
So I would challenge you to do this. I would say um, that each of you, so let's say I'm into, I don't know, quilting. And let's say that, Frank's into golf. Neither one of us are into those, but let's just say that that's the case. Um, my challenge would be for me to pick up a book or magazine, something about quilting that's going to be a good one, that's going to have something good in it, and give those to him. And then he should pick up a book or magazine, a couple things for me, and give those to me. And then the challenge is not that I have to read the whole book or anything like that, but find a couple of chapters in that book about golfing and read them, and then go back and like passionately talk about what I learned from reading. What was something that caught my imagination that I found was interesting in when I was reading about that topic. And by learning a little bit about what their thing is, it allows you to be able to understand maybe more or have a conversation about it. And so it's a great way to just learn, be able to have discussions about it. And if there's not like, sometimes people don't have maybe having hobbies too much, but maybe let's say that your husband's more intellectual. And so he's, more of a thinker and he does that kind of thing. Try to find something that's like maybe the opposite. So in this case, if he's really intellectual, maybe it's bodybuilding, and you're going to give him a couple books on bodybuilding. And it's just the idea of let's um, try to find something that really interests us in about what that other person is doing. Um, so my husband plays piano. He's gone on this journey of learning to play piano, and I love music, but he's doing jazz piano, which is
Oh, wow.
like very cerebral for me. And so I don't always understand everything he's saying, but it's trying to grab onto the things that I do understand, and that I can have a discussion with him about what he's really passionate about. And that's really what this is about, is trying to do that.
Oh, that's so good. So good. And it expands your horizons too. Like it
Right,
opens us
right.
up to things that we might not have even considered. We might still hate golf, right? But at least we know
Yeah,
more about it and can speak with them about something that they're passionate about. So I love
right.
that.
Yeah, the idea is not that you're going to love it or want to become a golfer. It's that you can have a like discussion, because then they can talk about something they're passionate about. And then obviously they need to be able to also talk about something you're passionate about. And sometimes what we found is um where, there's something I'm doing that he's not really interested in. There's something that he's doing that I'm not interested in. When we do that, we can find commonalities. So I took up watercolor painting. He's taken up jazz piano, and we can find things that relate to each other that are like common, and we can have a passionate discussion about that, even though he's talking about it how it relates to his thing, and I'm talking about it how it relates to my thing. And so we can find this common ground there. So,
That's so great. Great
mhm,
advice. And so you told me that you and Frank have 3 questions that you
mhm,
actually ask each other every month to help keep your relationship healthy and happy and
mhm.
growing. And what would those be?
So I call this monthly magic. And
Okay,
I
so you
think
have magic
communication,
moments and monthly magic. Okay.
yes, because I'm all about the magic. I tell Frank he's magic. So I guess magic is a theme for me. Um, but and I did not come up with this. This is from I inter so I interview a lot of like company founders and CEOs and things like that, and I do a lot of covers. And so one of my clients had Nick Vujicic. I don't know if I said his name right, but I always butcher it. But he's the guy. He's a motivational speaker, and he was born without any arms or
Oh,
legs.
yeah, I know who you're talking about. I couldn't say
Yeah.
his name either, but yeah.
So anyway, so I got this from him because he spoke at an event that of one of my clients, and then I did a cover based on, like with that, when he came and was
Uh-huh.
the visitor or whatever, they had me do a cover story for their magazine. And so he does this with his wife. And it's the 3 questions are, what is something that I'm doing that you want me to keep doing? And The next one is, what is something I'm doing you want me to stop doing? And then the third one is, what is something I'm not doing yet that you want me to start doing? And the key to this really is listening. You've got to listen with an open mind. And so, and with intention, it's kind of, I say listening is like a combination of um, intention and or intention and attention. So the intention part is that you've got to have a genuine interest in what the other person is saying, right?
Okay.
Their experiences, their views, their feelings, and their needs. And then the attention part is really staying present and open and unbiased. Because even though you may not agree with what they're saying, their ideas or their viewpoints, right? So
That's the
they may
challenge.
say, yeah. And so that's the really key. Those questions are great. But sometimes you're going to hear things that maybe you don't agree with or you don't want to hear. They might be true, but you don't want to hear them. And so it's not to interject. You're just, you want to ask the questions, each of you, ask the questions. Now you can ask a question maybe to clarify if you don't understand, but you want to tread lightly there because you don't want it to be like, I do that. I don't know what you're talking about. You don't want to become defensive in that. But that has really helped us to grow.
Now, do you
And
make this like an event? Is this, okay, on this evening, we're going to go someplace, or we're just going to sit in, or, or you just take a little
we
time out
really
to do
don't.
that?
We really don't. We just take time out to do it. Um, I mean, it wouldn't be a bad idea to make it an event or just to have it more planned and scheduled, but we just, we just kind of do it every month.
And I'm curious, Cindy, after 20 years, are you still coming up with new things?
Of course. So like the other day we did it and sometimes it's like a simple thing, right? So like one of the things was my husband said, like, what is something that you want me to stop doing? And that was don't put mail on the table. Now that's like a simple thing,
And
but it
in
just was
20
like,
years, that never came up until this magic.
it has come up before. It has come up before.
Okay.
But it's just, it's something that like I think I got out of the habit and then I started doing it again. It's like
Yeah.
so um so you don't know, and sometimes there's things that like again, you get out of the habit of doing things that maybe were a good habit that you would say like, you know, or you're not doing it as much and you're like, I really like that. Or you do something that you never did before and they're like, I really like that. And you have no idea. Like my husband, he started, and I didn't even know I liked to have my back scratched, to tell you the truth. But my son likes to have his back scratched. And my son started scratching my back because I always scratch his back when I see him, he's like, oh, I love when I come to visit because you're the only one that scratches my back. And so we have this thing, we'll like stand in the kitchen and he'll scratch my back and I'm scratching his back. And so I said, God, I was telling Frank that. And I said, I didn't even know I like to have my back scratched so much. And so that was something where it was like, like he started doing that, so he started scratching my back and I said, I really like it when you scratch my back. And so now, I want you to do that more. Right. Well, I didn't even know I liked that.
That's
It took
so
me,
interesting. How fun.
yeah. Yeah. So you just
Always
don't
something
know.
new to learn. Yeah, I
Yeah, it
love that.
is. And you have to think about it. Like, I think that's the other thing is it's being intentional. You have to think about what is it that I do want? And that's half the battle sometimes. We don't even know what we want. So,
Right. And that can
um,
change, or we can also, just like you said, become aware of something that we were never
right,
really actually had the awareness of. Yeah.
right. I mean, even thinking like something that were not doing, maybe it's something that your husband did when you were first married and he doesn't do it anymore and you'd like him to do it again.
Mhm.
That's like, this is something I'd like you to start doing. It doesn't mean that he never did it. It's just that he hasn't been doing it and you'd like him to start doing it, and he may not even know like that was a thing for you. So,
Oh, that's
and
so
he forgot.
good. So
Hmm.
good. So I
So,
know we've talked a lot today about being intentional, and that's one of the things I so admire about you.
mhm.
So how do you stay intentional and be present in your relationship?
So, we've, both Frank and I, in our own ways, have developed sort of what I'd say like a mindful love ritual. And I think that's a really important thing for everybody to do. And it may look a little different for everybody. Um, and I'm going to give you some examples of the ways we've done it, but I also want to talk about what does a sort of a mindful love ritual look like. And so that's the first thing is you really want to set an intention for, or a goal is another way to look at it of, for your relationship. Maybe it's that you guys haven't been as kind to each other. And so maybe your intention is that you want more kindness in your relationship. So that's like the first step is just figuring out what is the goal there. And then you want to choose, maybe three things um, that would support that. So maybe it's, with kindness, let's say, um, I just want to be more patient with my husband, like, and not be so impatient. And maybe it's you're gonna leave him a kind note, um, on the mirror or on his keyboard or someplace like that. Um, maybe you're gonna just be more mindful about acknowledging when he does something kind for you. Okay, and so maybe those are my three actions, and then you want to review: did I do those things? Um, and how did I do? Kind of rate each other. Then I kind of be looking at them, every day. If you're starting this out, it's a good way. If there's a bigger thing you're working on, this is a good way to do that. Um, for Frank and I think like I sort of have a weekly thing that has worked really well for me. I have a planner, and in my planner, um, I like to draw. I have a page, and I have like I make my own little things for different categories in my life. One of the things I draw it every single week. I draw a heart, and then I put 24/7 love buffet. And so that's my visual.
Aw.
I like to have a visual. And then next to my love buffet is some of the things I want to do this week that are intentionally that I want to either show more attention or I want to plan a special date or whatever those things might be. But I have things that I write down. I pulled one out just to give an example. I'm going to read them to you. So on my list
Oh, I
was
love it.
Chinese food date. So when Frank and I were first dating, we used to call it Chinese food in bed dates. And so we would have a big picnic in bed with Chinese food.
Oh, how
And
fun.
so I was like, okay, plan a Chinese food date. Um, then I had surprise Frankie. So I wanted to do something to surprise him. I wanted to make healthy ice cream for him. And I wanted to walk or bike daily together. Um, and then I had I don't know what this means. I can't remember what my thing was. I wrote pretzel, but I think that might have been
Oh, the
something with pretzeling.
pretzeling.
This is going back. Yeah, it's probably pretzeling. Um, but so so those were on my list for that week. And this was, I don't know when this was. It was like a year ago or something. Um, so I just make up my list for the week or whatever. Like these are things I want to do to make sure that I'm showing love and attention and all that kind of stuff. For my husband, he is a big reader. And so he likes to, he reads stuff constantly about, relationships and how to keep the romance alive and how do you treat your wife better and those kinds of things. And so he reads these things and he kind of, sometimes they have like the checklists and stuff. And so he's kind of always checking like, oh, I do this, I do this, I do that, like, okay, good. I'm doing these things. Oh, I'm not doing that one. Maybe I should add that one, right? And so he's kind of helps keep him in check that way. But we also discuss them together. So as a couple, he'll be like, hey, I read this article And it says, these are the 10 things of a healthy relationship. And I think we do them all. What do you think? And then we kind of go over them. So those are just a few ways, but it's being mindful of thinking that, because I think what happens is, I mean, first of all, I think we all crave love and intimacy and, just genuine connection with each other. But, our unconscious habits kind of get us out of that, right? Like, and that can just get in the way of having a good, healthy relationship. So if you just let your habits take over,
Right.
um, so it's really being mindful that you are doing these things. So I don't think some of this stuff would come necessarily natural for me. If I just did whatever, I don't know that I don't know that we would have the relationship, because I think I would just fall into everyday, so easy to get busy and, whatever. So by doing this, and some of them have become good habits that I don't have to think about anymore, because I wrote them down. I was very intentional about making sure they happened. Um, But, it's kind of like you get in your car, I like to liken it to this. But you ever gotten in your car and you're driving somewhere, and then all of a sudden you're like, where am I? Like, how did I get here? You don't
Yes.
even know, because you're not even thinking. And that can happen in your relationship, is like all of a sudden you're someplace you didn't even want to be, because you weren't paying attention. And
Right.
so it's not taking your eye off the ball. It's constantly keeping your eye on that relationship and how can I improve it?
And making it
So
such
those
a
are some of the things.
priority, because I think especially when we're younger and we had kids that we were raising, or now that we're older and we have businesses that we're running and just all of the things, and the grandkids or whatever, it's just so easy to get busy in our lives and take each other for granted. And
It
so
is.
just setting those intentions are so important.
Mhm. And we make goals for business, all our, I think that's a big thing in our society, right? You make these goals for your business,
Mhm.
and you make goals for your finances, and you make, like you do all these things, but we don't always do that for our own relationships. And we just let them, like they're just supposed to happen magically and stay great and fresh and wonderful. And that's, why do we think that that would occur,
Right.
Um, so I think it's really important to do that. And it's just a mindful ritual for you.
Yeah. That's so
Yeah.
good. So
Mhm.
I did want to also talk to you about, because like I said, when you were here for your photo shoot, you were telling
Mhm.
us about your meet anniversary and the things that you do
Mhm.
for that. And this year you're doing
Mhm.
something super epic. So tell us about what you're doing.
Yeah. So this is our 20th meet anniversary. We actually treat our meet anniversary when we met is a bigger deal than our wedding anniversary. In fact, some people laugh because they think, like Frank, they'll say, "When's your wedding anniversary?" And he's like, "Oh, like he tries to remember what it is, and they're like, "Oh man, he's in trouble." And then he'll turn to me and he'll be like, "What's our anniversary?" And I'm like, "Oh, just it's either this date or that date." And they're like, "You don't know your wedding anniversary, but you know the day you met." Like, yeah, we do, but we just treat that with more, because none of this would have happened without us meeting. So this year, so we always do something epic on our anniversary, but this year is 20 years. So we are taking 6 weeks. We've never done 6 weeks with not working, but we're not working. And we're going to New Zealand and Australia. And so we'll start in New Zealand for a couple of weeks, and then we're taking a cruise from New Zealand to Australia, 2-week cruise.
Oh
And
man.
then we'll end up in Australia, and we'll spend a couple more weeks in Australia. So two places we've never been. And our intention when we planned the trip was, it was like romance was number one. Is like, I even asked my husband, I said, like, what do you want out of this, trip? What are you looking for? And he's like, I want romance and, just relax. Like, what can kind of couple things, experiences can we have? That was so even in looking at what I was planning for the trip, it was like, what kinds of things can we do that are going to incorporate those things, or at least have some of that. So even picking out the places we're staying, um, if we did on the cruise ship, they have this thing like shake. I'm trying to remember what it's called, Shake for Romance or something like that. I can't remember what they call it, but it's like you shake your phone and they bring you champagne and
Oh,
they leave
wow.
chocolates on your
Oh, how
pillow and,
fun.
stuff like
That
that.
sounds
So
like a great cruise.
yeah, so it's like anything it is that just helped me too in thinking about what do we want on our trip. It was like there are certain things, you know, there are hikes and kayaking and, canoe, whatever we're going to do, but what are some romantic things that we can add into that, like places we can stay? So we're staying some places that have, um, hot tubs that are on the property that you're out like, there's no light pollution, so you're under the stars in a
Oh,
hot
wow.
tub, in New Zealand, and um, we have in Australia, we're doing this dinner that's like out in the red center, they call it. But you're out overlooking. I don't know if you know Ayers Rock, but it's like this famous place. So we're gonna have dinner under the stars, you know, overlooking this magical place that's supposed to be really,
Oh,
spiritual and
my
wonderful. And
goodness.
so like it's, intentionally putting some of those things into the trip. And so that's what we're doing. We're celebrating big.
I love that. So you're not just, it's not just a matter of, okay, this is our itinerary, which is what
Right.
we tend to do when we're planning a trip, but making sure you're planning those sweet, intimate moments of things that you'll both, love, and it'll just keep building that foundation for you, or build on that foundation that you already have. I love
Yeah.
that so much, and I can't wait to see all of your pictures. I know you'll have them.
Yeah.
I'll be following
Yep.
vicariously.
Yeah. Well, thank
So,
you.
well,
Yeah, I'm
thank you
excited.
so much. I appreciate you
Yeah.
being here and sharing. I want for you to, if you can, just share a little bit about like what you're doing and how women can have access to the things that you're creating. I know that you have a movement for empty nesters, and you do some writing and things that can help women in their relationships and just in their lives in general. So let us know what it is that you do and how we can connect with you deeper.
Thanks. So I have something called the Joyful Empty Nester, and it really started, you know, from me having not realizing, but having experiencing grief and not really realizing what the heck it was when I became an empty nester, and then transforming that into joy in my life. And so I help women to do the same thing, to experience more joy, more meaning, and more connection. And I think there's sometimes we lose a lot of connection in that stage of life because we had that built-in connection, right? We'd go to our kids' baseball games or dance recitals or whatever it might be, and you're hanging out with the other parents, but you weren't really, and some of those relationships just kind of fall off because you're not really friends, or you're, kind of
Right.
friends, like you don't have as much in common, whatever. And so I'm helping women to be able to figure out, how do I have these connection beyond that? How do I find meaning beyond the kids? Because I'm so used to having all my attention on the kids. Um, and it's kind of grown into more like second half of life too, where I talk a lot about sort of the seven things in the second half of life that we have to have conversations around, aging and how do you transitioning from careers and all kinds of things like that, right? Um, I just started a Substack, which is a platform really for writers. And I'm a writer. That's, my profession has been writing for years. So I just started a Substack, so you can go find me there. And there's free content there and also subscriptions. If people want to subscribe, they get extra content. And some of that stuff behind the paywall is more things that you just don't, maybe you're a little more sensitive or whatever that you, so you get more access behind that. That's like a little more private. And I also do workshops for women. So I do those a couple times a year. I do a workshop for people that are in that transition from, or maybe they've already transitioned. Some people they've been empty nesters for 10 years, but they just feel stuck. So
Right.
it really helps people with that transition. And yeah, so that's what I'm doing.
Well, we'll
Yeah.
make sure that we promote your workshops. Let me know when they're coming up again. We'll be
Hmm.
sure to drop those in the group in case anybody would like to attend. I'd love to help you get the
Hmm.
word out about those. And then
Yeah.
when we wrap up here, you can just put in the comments links for how people can connect with you, what
Okay.
email you prefer, where your Substack, where people can find that,
Hmm.
or anything else that you have as resources that you would like to share here. We would love
Okay,
to
great. I will
have
do
you
that.
share it. And let me just take another peek and see what else we have in the group. Um, so Stevie says it's Ben's fault that I have a passion for triathlon and I inspire him to draw. So it looks like they have also picked up on sharing their things with each other. And she
Hmm.
also
Which is
shared,
awesome.
yeah. And then she made the comment too that, there's too many Disney princess movies that lead us to believe that relationships just stay magically the same. No effort.
Right,
Once you
right,
found your handsome prince, you don't really have to do anything else from there, right? So,
right.
so I don't see any specific questions, but ladies, if
I want
you
to make a
have
comment though
any,
about what Stevie said.
yes.
Um, and that's so true, Stevie. And I saw this thing yesterday and I thought it was really good. And it was I don't know if you know the bucket list family, but um the bucket list family guy, he was saying that it's not Disney's responsibility to model what a healthy relationship
Ooh,
is. It's our responsibility. And that's another thing that my husband and I talk about a lot is that we are role modeling for our children what a healthy relationship looks like. And that is really important. What you do, your kids see always. And so do you want, and I always think of it this way, what do I want my kids to see? Do I want to see them and what do I want for them in their life? Do I want them to have a healthy, happy, wonderful, loving relationship? Because I know someday I'm not going to be here anymore, but hopefully they're going to have somebody in their life that, that is loving and gives them that love, right? And so if I'm not role modeling that for them, then what am I teaching them?
oh,
And
that's so
so,
good. So
mhm,
powerful. Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of responsibility, but it's really when you think, I think beyond even now to what you want for them to have. And if
mhm,
you don't have it going on now, then it's a good time. It's not too late to start developing those things so that,
right.
you're still setting an example, not just for your kids, but I just have to say this again, like Cindy, you have inspired me, you inspired my team. Like when you were here, you inspire people on social media and you're inspiring people today by just living this beautiful, intentional, engaged life with your partner and being open about it. And, that sparks things for other people to say, yeah, I could step up my game a little bit. So I appreciate that. Because a lot of
Thank
people
you.
like they will live it, but they don't share it necessarily. So you don't know
Right,
if you don't see it. So I
right,
don't know if you never know how far your reach will go, right? Like beyond
right.
what you're doing, but just how special and important that is that you're just living your best life and being visible and doing it. So I love that.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Kim.
Well,
This was
thank you
really
for
fun.
coming.